Hey, Mark.
Hey, Jamie.
I think Tim was trying to get in.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anybody in. Do you see anybody in the waiting room?
I do. I wonder
I think
if
you
you're
might be
not-
the host for some reason.
Okay.
I don't
So
know why.
I'm making you a co-host. That was weird. I wasn't planning to stay, but I can. I'll make sure I set you as co-host on these if it will let me. All right, good. Looks like people are in.
Hi, folks. Apologies. Jamie was co-host and we didn't know, so she just let everybody in. We'll make sure we correct that moving forward. Thanks for being here, folks.
Jamie and Kim, I just made you co-host also. Dana, do you want me to make you one too, or no? Anybody else on your team? Tammy? Okay. Whoa. Hold please. Are you all still co-hosts, or does it only allow one at a time? Jamie or Kim, are you guys still co-hosts?
I see co-host beside my name, Mark's
Okay.
name, Kim's name, and Tori's name. So we're
Great.
good to go.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks, Jamie. All right. Looks like folks are trickling in still, but we'll go ahead and get started since we only have an hour together. Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome to the first HMIS Policy Committee meeting of 2022. My name is Mark Mora. I work for Homebase. I am the facilitator of this meeting. Just want to thank everybody for being here today. We're going to go into introductions, but just want to flag for everyone, we're going to try something different today with introductions. Considering, again, we have limited time, we want to see if maybe this method works a little better in terms of efficiency. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have all the folks on the team that kind of support this meeting introduce themselves. So they'll come off mute. And then we will have everyone else, and everyone else includes committee members, and then agencies that don't participate in HMIS, and then members of the public all introduce themselves in the chat. So I will ask folks to do that in a second, but really quick. Again, my name is Mark Mora, along with myself from Homebase, Tanya Morales, who's not here in the meeting, but she supports this meeting by creating minutes for the meeting. So we're the team from Homebase, and then want to introduce or allow the folks from the red team to introduce themselves. We'll start off with Kim.
Hey everybody, Kimberly Tai, System Administrator on the H3 Red Team.
Thanks, Kim. And then over to Jamie K.
Hi, everybody. Jamie Klinger, Research and Evaluation Manager with H3. I manage the Research Evaluation and Data Team, also known as RED.
Awesome. Pass it over to Tammy.
Hi, everyone. My name's Tammy Stosich. I am the Quality Assurance and Trading Coordinator on the Red Team.
Thanks, Tammy. Carlos.
Hello, my name is Carlos Silva from H3 Red Team, and I am a data analyst, so I'll be working with a lot of these numbers that we require for these meetings.
Thanks, Carlos. And I think Tori Carlson is a part of the red team also, but I think Tori is not, she's out today, correct? Okay.
We have one more person,
okay.
Dana on the red team.
Hi, I'm Dana. I'm planner evaluator for the red team, playing with all the numbers that y'all enter.
Thanks, Dana. And then the coordinated entry team, Shelby.
Hi, everyone. Shelby Ferguson, Coordinated Entry Manager for H3.
Awesome. And then Council on Homelessness members, is Tony here? You want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. Tony Yusufari. I'm with the Housing Authority, Contra, Costa County, and I'm the Public Housing Agency seat on the Council on Homelessness.
And then Gabriel, are you on?
Yeah, I'm here. Hello, everyone. Gabriel Lemus. I am with the Department of Conservation and Development, and I hold the Emergency Solutions Grant Program seat.
Awesome. And then we're going to have the committee members. That is people who are working for HMIS partner agencies, if you can introduce yourselves in the chat. I'm going to drop, if I can cut this and paste it into the chat. I'm going to put all of the partner agencies in the chat. So if you are a member of one of these agencies, go ahead and state your name and your agency in the chat. We'd appreciate it. So I'll give a little bit of time so people can introduce themselves in the chat. Welcome, Sarah, Alex, Sharon, Justin, Janelle, thanks for being here. All right, go ahead and keep introducing yourselves if you haven't already. And then if I can have non-HMIS participating agencies, if you folks can introduce yourselves in the chat now. All right, and then any members of the public, if you are here, go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat. All right, so welcome again, everyone. We're going to move on to public comment. This is an open period for members of the public to comment on items not listed on the agenda. Any public comment? Feel free to raise your hand or to throw a question or comment in the chat. Okay. Not seeing anything for public comment. We're going to go on to the next item. So system administrator updates. I'm going to pass it over to Kim.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mark. Hey, everybody. It's good to see everyone's beautiful faces. I just had a few quick updates for the group. The first one being the well-being data element. HUD has released a training resource on how to collect the well-being questions that were added to the data standards last October. You should have received it in the packet. If not, I will drop it in the chat right now. It basically just goes over the rationale behind why those questions were added, how to ask those questions and the preferred language, and then what to do if a client states that they need well-being support or suicide prevention resources. So please check that out and share this document with your intake staff. The second update has to do with the HUD SPM report. So the red team has reached out to providers. You should have received an email from Tammy last week regarding annual assessments. So if you are behind on your annual assessments, please catch up on those before the end of the month. HUD uses the annual assessment to measure income growth and how we're doing as a system in that area. So just a reminder, all programs are required to do the annual assessment for clients that are in program for over 365 days, except for street outreach. That's the only project type that does not have to do annual assessments. So that report is due to HUD on Feb 28. And then the HUD LSA we had already submitted in December, but it is currently in review with HUD at the moment. Next slide, please. All right, so these two areas we are requesting feedback. Carlos from our team has created a script that can correct errors in the disabling condition field. How it works is if any of the 7 disability types were answered as long-term, then it will change the disability condition yes/no field to a yes. We see a lot of conflicting data in this area. So our question to the group is, should we run this script across the board? For what time frame? Something to consider here is how this will affect your program. Let's say if being disabled is one of your eligibility requirements, the script may change a yes answer to no. So it relies heavily on the accuracy of your disability type fields. Anyway, hoping to get some initial feedback.
is there any downside to implementing this?
I mean, if you're not confident in your disability type answers, it will change a yes answer to the are you disabled question to a no answer. So, you know, if you've already submitted an APR report or some other HUD report or funding report, your you know, some of those fields may change, and that's just something to consider. Also, if eligibility requirements, you know, if you have to serve disabled clients, it may change a yes answer to a no answer. So that might mess up other reports too.
Kim, this is Sarah. So you're saying that if it was marked no, but there was a disability checked, it would take the disability off?
It'll change the yes, no disabling condition field to a yes. So it's looking at all the different types that you've entered. So
yeah,
disability, mental
in
health.
which case the scenario you just imagined wouldn't necessarily happen unless somebody marked yes, there's a disability, but nothing was checked under the specifics. Is that the circumstance where it would be changed to no?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it does seem like it's one of those double things where it's easy to miss a check. So I think it's a good idea, although I don't know. I think
another thing to consider is
yeah.
Right now, the current state of the program, I am not comfortable changing yes answers to no for disabilities. And so right now it's just changing the no answers to yes.
Oh, brilliant.
But changing yeses to no is a feature I could make, but that's a little controversial.
I agree. I mean, given that new update, I would say yes, go forward with it.
Yeah.
Okay. So if any no answers were inaccurately entered, we will change that to a yes, given you do have a disability type entered that is long-term.
Is there an alternative to just doing it? You know, like if, for example, the disability box is not checked, but other areas show that there's a disability, can the system just say, hey, you have a discrepancy or an inconsistency, you know, check this item or that item, and you know, make sure they all make, you know, they're all aligned?
Yeah, thanks for that feedback, Tony. We actually have a data quality dashboard that will pull up any errors in that field. So agencies have the ability to see where their errors are.
I mean, it would make sense to have it across all the programs. I mean, I'm assuming that this is the same of concern to all the programs, not just one specific program. So
would this have any effect on the question after the disabilities, where it asks if the disabilities affect the ability to get work and housing, which is also sort of a redundancy?
Yes, that is the question that we're changing, Sharon. It's the way it's worded on the screen is, does the client have a disability that impacts their ability to work or get housing or sustain housing, something like that. So that is the question that we will be.
Oh, not the individual long-term answers, but the one at the end.
Right, right.
Gotcha. Okay.
Hey, Tammy, I see you have your hand up.
Hey, I just wanted to mention that we currently have a feature on the enrollment screen that gives you an error message if you answered the disabling condition yes or no question inaccurately based on the disability type responses. So to refer to a question related to, do we have other parameters in place? We do, but this will help clean up historical data as well.
Yes, thank you, Tammy. I forgot about that piece. We do have a warning message that pops up if you incorrectly answer that question.
This seems like it would be useful.
I agree. I think it's a great idea because the disability is already identified by the long term. So if you're just looking at folks who have long term and turning that no to a yes, that sounds like a great cleanup. I'm trying to think through any downside. I can't think of how that could go wrong. So that's a great idea.
Awesome. Thank you for that feedback, Janelle.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, I guess moving forward, what we're gonna do is only change no answers to a yes if we see that there is a conflict. In other words, there is a disability type that was answered as long-term, yet the do you have a disabling condition, yes, no field was answered no. So we'll go ahead and move forward with that. All right, the next piece had to do with Hmis invoicing. We are currently behind on invoicing for the 21-22 fiscal year. In the past, we've always billed in advance of the year. So this year's invoice should have been billed back in July. Our question is, would it be better for us to bill at the end of the fiscal year or continue doing it the way we've been doing it, which is one invoice at the beginning of the fiscal year for all the renewals, and then any new licenses that are purchased during the year, we will invoice before purchasing, and of course, prorate it to the end of June. Is there a preference, thoughts, gut reactions?
I vote for option B.
I do as well.
Okay.
Same, option B.
Okay. All right, well.
Or you know what, may make a friendly amendment. I'm just trying to think this through. Well, then I see why option A is there, because I guess I'm wondering, do you really want to be sending an invoice every new person, every new agency as we're added? But then my suggestion would be to do one at the beginning and one at the end, but that's another lift too. I just think the benefit for us in getting it at the beginning of the fiscal year is just for a budget to be able to get that all squared away first and know what we have left. But I don't want to create new work for your invoicing department, having to do every new person at every organization.
Right, yeah, that's how we've been doing it up until this point. And it is the added burden, but we do understand that, for budget reasons.
Okay.
Maybe having it split out that way is better.
Okay, thank you.
And one other thought to add to this conversation is I think it would be great once our operations team over at H3 is a little bit more caught up. They're still in the thick of all of the pandemic billing and meeting the demands of the county as well. So that's why we're in this circumstance, even though we typically would have these invoices sent out at the beginning of the fiscal year. But potentially there's another opportunity for us to look at all of the license allocations and check in with all of the agencies, whether it's annually or biannually, just to get a sense of, are we meeting your need? Do you have any plans to ramp up or to decrease your staffing and the license capacity? So there's always an opportunity for that too, and to right size.
Yep. Thanks, Jamie. All right, awesome. We'll keep doing things the way we've been doing it, which is option B. And then also send you guys the current allocations so you can make changes before we send those invoices out. All right, I think that was it for me.
Kim, one more quick question. Are you anticipating sending those invoices for the 21-22 period soon?
Yes.
So folks can know when to expect those?
Yes, thank you. We plan on sending it out before the end of this month, so keep an eye out.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Kim. We're moving on to point in time count updates. Jamie and Kim.
All right, next slide, please. So we're going to talk about the point in time count as well as the housing inventory count. Doing our best to describe what all of these many acronyms mean for folks that may not be very familiar. So hopefully this isn't brand new news to you, but we just wanted to make sure that we send these communications out in our various public and community meetings that we have going on right now. We have decided to postpone both the sheltered and the unsheltered point in time count to the last 10 days of February. So most folks are very familiar with the HUD required methodology, where every COC and community that receives those federal funds is obligated to conduct a point in time of their sheltered and unsheltered people experiencing homelessness in the last 10 days of January. That requirement is every other year, but this year, even though it's technically an off year, HUD is requiring that count because the COVID pandemic essentially, most communities across the entire nation didn't even get their point in time count done last year on the on year. So it's very important for us to move forward with this count. However, we're in the midst of another COVID surge right now. So we're being very mindful about the significant increase that are happening in our communities around the positive cases, as well as hospitalizations, how this is affecting people experiencing homelessness, as well as our homeless service provider staff. Specifically, we tend to rely on our core outreach program staff, as well as our homeless service provider staff to conduct the unsheltered count and also support the survey sampling and data collection following the PIT count. And right now we have extremely low volunteer recruitment for all of those reasons I just listed. So we reached out to HUD last week. We requested an extension. So we will be conducting this a month later than the typical timeframe that we had planned. So HUD approved this this modification to our methods on the 10th. So there's a new date, and there's two dates I want to just make sure everybody's very mindful of. So what you see highlighted here on the screen is that there's a sheltered count the night of February 23rd, and then the unsheltered count that we do all of the volunteer recruitment for and gather teams to help support the canvas across the entire Contra Costa County. That is taking place the morning of February 24th, and that typically happens around the hours of 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. Next slide. Okay, so then this is my opportunity to plug and ask. We still really need support for volunteers. So even though there's some things going on in our community, we're really hopeful and optimistic that this surge, we're in the thick of it right now and is going to start easing up over the next few weeks, if not sooner. We are looking for people to sign up in teams of 2, which is a little bit different than past years. So before, folks would just say, I want to participate, and we would find 2 people that are a good pair, put them together. This year, we're asking folks to use our registration link, and maybe if somebody on the team, if you haven't done so already, could drop that registration link in the chat. We're hoping that you can identify somebody already within your pod or kind of a colleague that you work very closely with, maybe a friend, maybe even a family member that can help support this activity and doesn't put anyone at an increased risk to spread or share, germs or symptoms that are happening. So please, please, please sign up for the point in time count. Again, this is the morning of February 24th. Everything is going to be happening virtually. So trainings are conducted virtually this year instead of the in-person trainings that we've done in the past. Information about your volunteer Canvas assignment, so the areas that we're asking you to cover and collect data on, will be emailed to you shortly after registering. So we'll get those maps to you virtually as well. And then, like I already mentioned, the teams are going to be assigned certain census tracts. So again, very similar to what we've done in previous years where you had a designated region. It's not arbitrary map grids this time. We are trying to focus specifically within census tracts to help with the boundaries a little bit more. And again, we're not going to have any kickoff deployment locations. So teams, you guys get to determine between you and your partner where you deploy, and we'll be monitoring the data on the back end to make sure everybody's logging into their smartphones using the tools that we're going to be implementing and make sure that everybody's out and about and kind of moving around a little bit. But you guys get to choose where to deploy. And then I covered this a little bit already as well, but we're going to use the same sort of technology and mobile smartphone applications that we've used in the past. This is the Esri Tool Survey 123 app. So hopefully that all feels a little bit familiar.
Jamie, how do you control where everybody's going if everyone gets to pick their place?
So
You
you
guys
get
have
to
a
pick
like
where to
master list?
deploy. Yeah, great question, Tony. You get to pick where to deploy from, but we will assign you a region. So once you sign up as a team and there's 2 or 3 people on your team, you'll let us know through that registration link what areas you're most familiar or comfortable with across the community. And then we will say, okay, you have these 3 census tracts. We're going to give you maps of those census tracts. We'll send that information to you via email. If you want us to print it for you and pick it up from the office, we can do that too. But essentially we'll help assign the areas, and then we'll just monitor to make sure on that morning between those hours, the designated 5-hour chunks of time, that you started dropping pins, or that we could actually see that you're out and about in that area and not in a different designated zone. That make sense? Any other questions about the unsheltered count? Oh,
yeah, really quick. Hi, it's Joe. I just I tried to sign up to do the volunteer side of things, but I wasn't able to because I don't have yet a second person to be in my team. So when is the deadline to volunteer? When do we have to get that application done?
Great question. We're hoping by the end of the month to have a really good, strong sense of how many teams that we have put together. And then if we don't have enough teams to meet the Canvas needs across the community, then we're going to do some very special and specific outreach to certain groups of folks to try to, wrap up recruitment. So again, we have full geographic coverage. So I would say maybe take another week or 2. Hopefully by the 31st, you're able to find somebody. Joe, you're particularly connected to us in many ways. So if you need support from either myself or from Jamie Jeanette, we'd be happy to help with that.
Perfect.
Just keep in touch.
I'll send it out to my network of folks to get more volunteers. I was just looking for a deadline. So that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Let's aim for the end of the month, but there's some flexibility again, because it's not until the 3rd week of February. Any other questions about volunteer recruitment? Okay, and then the other thing I want to mention is that the point in time count involves a few different components. Kim's going to talk about the sheltered pit count here in a minute, but following the enumeration, so following when the volunteers go out in the community and count all of the people experiencing unsheltered homelessness and drop pins and identify where they're located, then we collect demographic information about that population using survey sampling. So we don't want to have one-on-one interaction with every single person. It's very resource intensive, as well as it puts more people at risk right now because of the conditions in our community. So we will do survey sampling following the pit count. Right now, that's a little bit up in the air because there's some deadlines that we're faced with for HUD reporting requirements. So survey sampling may take place a little bit before the point in time count based on some previous known data where we have good ideas of where people experiencing unsheltered homelessness are across our community, or it might take place after. So more information to come. Essentially what I want to highlight here is that we're going to be reaching out for some support to identify folks to conduct these one-on-one interviews. It's usually a pretty brief survey. We're aiming for about 500 sheltered and unsheltered individuals to participate in this. That's what we've aimed for just about every year. So that's a pretty standard goal for us to reach. Again, tentatively, we had some targets in terms of what this might look like, but that could potentially change, again, just because of what's going on with the surge. So how this typically works is that we've leaned on core teams and our homeless service provider agencies and network to help us with these interviews. This year, we would really like to encourage more people with lived experience to do this one-on-one participation with their peers. So what we'll be doing on the H3 side of the house is reaching out to all shelter and transitional housing providers. We're going to ask for some kind of like survey. We have a formal name for it, now I'm forgetting. A shelter survey administrator that can help us kind of reach out to people in their network, at their shelter, at their transitional living facility, who are willing to have these one-on-one interviews. And then all of those folks are going to get paid for their time and paid for every completed survey that they get back. So there's some logistics involved with that. We'll give folks all the information, but I just want to let everyone know that we're going to be reaching out for that support. And if you work within any of those type of agencies or operate those programs, just expect us to come knocking on your door, asking for a little bit of help during this really critical time. Any questions about that? Okay, I'm going to hand it over to Kim to talk about the shelter point in time count.
All right, so apart from the unsheltered count, we also have the sheltered count, which counts individuals that are in shelter and transitional housing the night of February 23rd. This includes all emergency shelter and transitional housing, regardless of funding source and participation level in HMIS. For providers that are participating in HMIS, all of this will be run right out of HMIS on March 14th. So we are asking that you make sure all data entry for the month of February is complete and verified by March 10th. For providers that are not in HMIS, we'll be sending an Excel tracking sheet 1 week prior to Feb 23rd. Next slide, please. And then apart from the point in time count, we have the housing inventory count as well. This is an annual count of homeless beds as of the night of February 23rd. This includes all shelter, transitional housing, rapid rehousing, and permanent housing beds, regardless of funding source and participation level in HMIS. And for this one, we will be sending out a Google Doc, similar to last year. It'll be sent to all agency administrators and non-HMIS participating providers about 1 week prior to the 23rd. And if you are familiar with this process, on the next slide, I have a sample of what that Google Doc is going to look like. It's just got some instructions on the top, and then it asks for the number of beds at your facility on that night of the 23rd of February. So more info to come on that. That's it.
All right, any questions for Kim before we move to the next item? Okay, not seeing any questions. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to updated Contra Costa data quality dashboard. Hand it over to Tammy.
Hi, everyone. Can you please go to the next slide? I just want to quickly go over the Contra Costa data quality dashboard and show you how to use your report filters to narrow down your search to only include your agency. And I also wanted to cover how to click on the numbers that represent a data quality tile to further look into which clients are representing that number and may have a common error. So I'm going to share my screen with you now, and we're going to go into Clarity. Let's see, this will stop with the screen share. Yes. Okay. So in my first example, I just want to point out this filter section of the dashboard report. It's probably going to be closed down. So you're going to have to expand it by clicking on the filter arrow. And one thing you want to take note of is that you should probably change your agency name before running the report. This will show you your agency specific data. So if you click on the field to enter an agency name, It'll auto-populate your agency, or you can begin typing it. Let's see, it's not working for me. And then just select your agency from the pick list values. After you select your agency, you can change your report dates if you choose to, but it's automatically defaulted to look at data from 1/1/2015 to current, and we extended the date to 8/2/2025. So it's always going to look at the most current data all the way back from 2015 till now. The project type field is, we've included all project types, so there's no need to remove any of the project types. If you want to narrow your search even further and look at specific program data, you can enter a program name in the program name filter as well. After you've set up your filters, then you can click on the Run button to generate your report. I also have another window here that has a generated report in respect of time. And so after you've ran your report with your report filters, to begin looking at the report, the first section of this report is looking at program specific data elements and universal data elements. So it'll tell you if your client has a project start date, before the project exit date, or after the project exit date, any move-in date conflicts. It'll show you households with more than one head of household. We have annual assessment data quality report tile here. If you click on one of the sections, like our main concern is the past due reports or past due annual assessments. So if you click on that section, it'll generate a list of clients that fall within that error rate, and it'll show you their profile, personal ID or enrollment ID. So you can go directly to their program enrollment from the enrollment ID drill down. It has a link to the enrollment, and then you can update your information. This will take forever to download, but that's how you do a drill down. And you can just click on any of the numbers to perform a drill down, and it'll show you a list of all the clients that fall within that error rate. The second section of this report talks or covers data quality issues related to the coordinated entry enrollment. So the Contra Costa CES enrollment. So if you're an agency responsible for enrolling clients into Contra Costa CES, it'll give you a list of clients who are missing a Contra Costa CES enrollment. It'll also show you missing triage assessments and current living situation assessments. These are all HUD required components, so we want to make sure that all of these are in place. Then we go into other related data quality errors like residential overlap. So if you see that your client is also a client of another agency and your guys' have the same project type, and there may be a potential overlap in enrollment dates or exit dates, we encourage you to communicate with the other agency to figure out when did the client actually exit one program and enter another program, because they can't overlap. So that's what this report tile will help you identify. And then we also have like housing status, living situation conflict. So if you're a project type that requires your client to be homeless at time of entry, if there's a conflict with the resident's prior to project type or housing status, it'll show you the discrepancy so you can fix it. We also have like enrollment income conflict, errors in assessment level. The errors in assessment level, this is related to the triage assessment and the VI SPDAT. So there's a question, it says assessment level, and if you are completing a triage assessment, your assessment level should always be crisis needs assessment. If you're completing a VI SPDAT, your assessment level should always be housing needs assessment. So if you entered the wrong assessment level for, a triage assessment, for instance, then it will display in this report, and then you only need to go into the triage assessment and correct the assessment level field to complete the correction. And then lastly, down below, we have charts that show your timeliness. So in an effort to comply with our HMIS policies and procedures, where we request that you enter all your data within 2 business days, this will help you kind of gauge how close you are to meeting those goals. Are there any questions?
I have a couple questions. Why does the date range default to such a wide range?
I believe it's to be in alignment with our, let's see, what was the report that we just ran prior to our LSA? It's, can't remember right off the top of my head for some reason.
I mean, the LSA is a big one because that one looks at the last 3 to 4 years. So we just went back as far back as 20. Oh, I know which one you're talking about, Tammy. It's the HDIS.
Yes, I'm sorry.
That one looks at all data from 2015. Yep.
So we have
up to, like, are we gonna get, I'm just wondering if we're gonna get annual assessments that aren't even due yet, if we're having the date range go out to 2025.
No, this is
Okay.
only looking at the head of households project start date, the anniversary date of the head of households project start date.
Okay.
So if it's past, if there isn't an annual assessment that falls on the anniversary of the head of households project start date within this year, it's going to give you a red flag that it's due.
Okay. Okay.
Good
And then
question.
also there's some historical data where I see something that I could fix one small thing, but because it's on the enrollment screen and the enrollment was back when the standards are different, I would have to add in a bunch of data that wasn't collected at the time in order to fix it. Do I then just do data not collected for every other field, or is there, what's the best practice for doing that?
I will let Kim answer that one if you don't mind.
Yeah, that is a great question. And HUD hasn't actually given much guidance on this either. So Sharon's question was around if we're having to correct data for a time that certain maybe data elements weren't yet required. How do you fill in those required fields if we weren't able to capture that data back in that year? And I would say in those cases, data not collected is an acceptable response. It is part of the data standards. So data collected is one of those valid responses. The downside is that our data quality report will show it as a quote unquote error. But that's the best information that we have. So I would say data not collected makes sense for those scenarios.
Thank you.
I completely agree. And I would say all of the existing reports like APRs and keepers and things like that won't be affected by that. Really, the only impact would be very long-term longitudinal data analyses and the HDIS report, which is it's an upload that we send to the state on our COC's performance. And it's completely fine for not all of that to be complete, especially because the standards have changed so much. So I wouldn't worry about that too much, but great question.
Thank you. That's all I have.
All right. Thanks, Tammy.
Thank you.
So next item is coordinated entry reminders. I'm going to pass it over to Shelby.
Thanks, Mark. Hi, everybody. I think I'm the last to go, so I will make it quick. Just a couple updates about the triage tool. I know it's small, but basically we want to make sure that we redirect your attention to one of the newest, if not the newest addition to the triage tool. At the very bottom, you'll see if currently homeless and problem solving was not successful, schedule or refer to a housing needs assessment. Basically, we added that because for those of you, your agencies or your programs that are doing the triage tool, so core, care, 211 emergency shelters. If you're doing these triage tools and you're not able to refer them somewhere, we want you to go to the next step of the process, which would be to do a VI SPDAT. So we want to make sure that you're checking that box at the right that says date of scheduled VI SPDAT. If it's the same day you're doing the triage tool, great, just put in today's date. If it's going to be in a future time, you can put in that date, but please make sure you're doing that if problem solving was not successful. So if they're homeless or at the imminent risk of homeless status and you weren't able to do any problem solving, you weren't successful, or you couldn't make a referral, then definitely make sure that you schedule a VI SPDAT to be done. And also remember to add the referral to Housing Needs Assessment Service in the Services tab in HMIS. That's under the Contra Costa CES program that Tammy, I know, has shown you many times, but I'm sure if you need a refresh, she could do that for you. But make sure that you're adding in that service so we're getting credit for that scheduled VI SPDAT. And then also just a reminder, if you are conducting problem solving on this triage tool, which you are, if you're doing the triage tool, you want to make sure that you're not referring to Hume, diversion, or rapid exit until you've identified a potential housing solution or potential resolution and you actually need funding for it. So we're going to be doing a training next week on problem solving. So I encourage you all to have your participants or your staff attend that training. We'll be talking a lot about problem solving as an intervention in general, but just make sure when you're doing that problem solving that you're only referring to Hume when you need that financial assistance and you've really already done the problem solving work to come up with a solution. I think that's all that I had. Does anyone have any questions about that?
Hi, Sylvie, it's Jasmine.
Hi, Jasmine.
Hi, when is that training going to be?
It's the COC training next Monday from 1 to 3. It's mandatory for all COC staff. I'm shamelessly plugging for it right now. I'm so sorry, but it is a mandatory training and it will be from 1 to 3. So if you don't have the invitation, I'm happy to send it to you, but it's for any staff that is doing direct client facing work. So if you're doing case management or you're a site supervisor, something like that, it will be relevant to you and your work.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Oh, actually, I think I do have one more slide, Mark. Yes. And then again, just a reminder, said this many, many times, but I want to reiterate that the VI SPDAT should be done every 6 months, or if there's a major life event that has occurred before the 6-month period, definitely update and do a new VI SPDAT, but at the minimum, you should be doing it every 6 months. We want to make sure that the VI SPDATs that we have in our system are the most accurate and up-to-date information. And you know, on the VI SPDAT, a lot of the questions are specifically focused on the last 6 months. So we want to make sure that we have that most up-to-date 6-month period. So if you can please remind your staff to be doing those on your participants every 6 months, that would be great. That is all that I have. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Shelby. Appreciate it. We are doing great on time, folks. We are at our last item of the agenda, which is Q&A. This is the part of the agenda where you can ask questions related to any of the agenda items or any questions related to HMIS data entry or processes. So opening the floor, feel free to unmute or throw your question in the chat.
Hi, everyone. Joe here again. I was curious on accessing. So I'm an outside looking in. I don't necessarily work for the system, right? Like I don't have access to the HMIS system itself. And I was just wondering, like, if somebody was doing research and wanted the data, would it be touching base with the organizations who are using the system, or is that, I don't know. I'm wondering if it's like public, if it's something that, you know, outsiders can ask for. Not saying that we're going to ask for like personal information, but just data specifics. I was curious about that.
I can take on that question. Hi, Joe. Thanks so much. That's a great question. The H3 team, both the HMIS team as well as the red team, can support any data requests that you have. I think you hit the nail on the head there in that we, of course, cannot provide any confidential or personally identifiable information, but what we'd be more than happy to do is aggregate different types of information for you. So
Right.
what that would mean is you can ask questions about all system type data, meaning anybody who's accessing services. You could ask about certain intervention models or project types or specific programs. We could put that data together for you in a variety of different ways. I am shamelessly, lots of shameless plugs happening here. Also going to drop our data request form in the chat here for you so that you can see the type of information that is really helpful for us for those requests. So if you have a certain time period, a certain population, a certain ask to help us narrow down exactly what you're looking for, you fill out that form, then we'll communicate with you, make sure we're meeting your needs, and we'll give you a timeline for when you can expect to have that data complete and in front of you. So
Yeah,
I will
that's
drop
pretty
that in the
awesome.
chat here in a minute.
Yeah, right on. Thanks.
You're very welcome.
Thanks for your question, Joe. Any other questions? All right. Not seeing any questions in the chat. So with that, we'll go ahead and close out the meeting. The next meeting date is February 15th from 3 to 4 p.m. So we appreciate everyone. Thanks for being here, and have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Please
Bye.
volunteer for the pit.
Thanks, bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.